Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you some of my favorite weird news stories of the past few days. Although, to be honest, all news is weird news. Life is weird right now. How you doing? How y'all coping? I know that you can't respond to me, but I'm going to talk to you as if you could. How you doing? How you holding up? You learning that guitar you always said you would? You dusting off the piano that's been doing nothing but collecting dust for 25 years? Just me? Okay. Cool. All right. Anyone else feel like they're losing it? Hands up if you're isolating alone. Just me? Sick. I mean, it always feels a little weird to talk with no response. But, hey, I'm used to it now. Anyway, our first story. Police swooped in on a suspicious man with a green rucksack strapped to the front of his body. CCTV picked him up, and the COVID-19 team are deployed to Gritly Mews in the Meadows to get a closer look. He stopped, and his bag is searched, where a large amount of cannabis is discovered in a plastic sack. He tells the officers, "I'm buying it in bulk, 'cause you can't get out with the lockdown." It's an excuse that officers have heard many times before, but he's arrested on suspicion with intent to supply. Drugs are still a problem for police despite the lockdown, but those addicted to a harder substance such as crack cocaine and heroin don't have the time, don't have the crime to commit to feed the habit, you know? Inspector James Walker leads a team of police constable specials, community support officers, and community protection officers as part of the COVID-19 police task force. Nice little cold open, eh? Kind of fun. Unless it was you, and then you're probably a little bit embarrassed. Was it you? Was it you? All right. Another story. It seems that all giant pandas needed was a little privacy. Parenthood might be around the corner from Ying Ying and Lily, who are longtime residents of Ocean Park in Hong Kong Zoo. The officials announced on Monday that after 10 years of attempts for natural mating and through trial and learning, these two have finally succeeded. It only took 10 years. The successful natural mating process today is extremely exciting for all of us, as the chance of pregnancy via natural mating is higher than artificial insemination. Michael Bowes, Executive Director for Zoological Operations and Conservation at Ocean Park, said in a press release today, due to the coronavirus outbreak, the park has been closed to all visitors since late January. Staff noticed certain behaviors in the two giant pandas that are commonly during breeding season, which occurs every year between March and May. Since late March, Ying Ying began spending more time playing in the water, while Li Li has been leaving scent markings around his habitat and searching the area for Ying Ying's scent, reads the press release. Yeah, this is a press release. This is some sexy stuff for a press release. Anyway, while it's still too early to tell whether a baby panda's on its way, Ying Ying's body and behavioral changes are being closely monitored. If successful, signs of pregnancy, including hormonal levels, fluctuations, and behavioral changes, may be observed as early as June, though there's always a chance that Ying Ying could experience pseudo-pregnancy, says Boost. That'd be sad. This is big news. And conservation efforts for the species that is currently being listed as vulnerable, one category away from being endangered, according to the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. There are only around 1,800 giant pandas that remain in their natural habitat, according to Ocean Park. And if Ying Ying is pregnant, the gestation period for giant pandas ranges between 72 and 324 days. Can you imagine being pregnant for 300? Also, what a range. That is insane. That's a big range. Are we not concerned about that? All right. The zoo said it would be sharing updates on its journey to motherhood once more is known. And another fun fact story. A beauty queen who's crowned Miss England in 2019 has returned to the United Kingdom from overseas charity work to continue her career as a doctor amidst the outbreaks. Yeah. Bahasha Mukherjee took a career in doctoring. After competing in Miss World pageant in December, she was invited to be the ambassador for several charities, planned to hang up her stethoscope and focus on humanitarian work. But then, as the coronavirus situation worsened back home in the UK, she was getting messages from her former colleagues in her old hospital, the Pilgrim Hospital in Boston, Eastern England, telling her how hard the situation was for them. And she contacted the hospital management team to let them know that she wanted to return to work. She told CNN it felt wrong to be wearing her Miss England crown, even for her humanitarian work, while people around the world were dying, and her colleagues were working so hard. Dr. Beauty Queen. It's crazy, right? It was incredible the way the whole world was celebrating all key workers, and I wanted to be one of those. I knew I could really help. And so she's returning to the UK after her work with the British High Commissioner in Kolkata and a flight from India to Frankfurt, then to London. There's no better time for me to be Miss England and helping England at a time of need. She said she self-isolated for 1 to 2 weeks until she can return to work as a doctor at the Pilgrim Hospital. She specializes in respiratory medicine, but says that doctors are currently being rotated to wherever they are needed. Does she need to self-isolate? Because surely she'll just be going to be exposed to it again. I think I'm not really understanding the logic there, but crazy, right? Dr. Miss England. Crazy stuff. Anyway, when we come back, what's the company Xerox doing to help the efforts? We'll find out when we return from the break. So don't go anywhere.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. When we left off, we were talking about Dr. Beauty Queen. And now, Xerox, the brand well known for making photocopy machines, has confirmed that it's now mass-producing disposable ventilators. This could come in handy, as hospitals around the world are facing a significant shortfall of ventilators in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Xerox confirms that it is working with medical device manufacturer Votron Medical to scale up production of the go-to vent. This is a low-cost device that's used by first responders in the case of emergencies and disasters. In the case of coronavirus patients, this could be used for those with milder and more controlled symptoms, thereby freeing up the ICU-grade ventilators for more critical patients. It takes off the overload of the system, says Naresh Sankar, Xerox's chief technology officer, while speaking with NBC News. The partnership with Xerox has one clear goal: to save as many lives as possible. For all of us, this will be the most important thing we ever do, says Votron's co-founder and CEO, Gordon A. Wong, MD, in a statement. It's expected that this partnership will result in the production of as many as 150,000 to 200,000 ventilators every month by June, with the hope to ramp it up to 1 million ventilators sometime in the coming months. This report suggests that Xerox will charge hospitals $120 each for each ventilator. Votron Medical describes the go-to vent as hands-free ventilator that offers secure airway using a continuous gas source. It can be operated on a compressor, oxygen air with a minimum of 10 liters per minute flow rates. They say the device does not require power from electricity or batteries, which adds to the versatility in complex medical situations such as disease outbreaks when power sources may not be available for everyone. The company makes ventilators in Sacramento, California. At this time, the U.S. government has asked a lot of companies, including automakers such as the Ford Motor Company, to produce ventilators at their factories to help reduce the shortfall of these critical medical devices as the cases continue to rise. And just to turn this one a little positive after that, those working legally in Japan's sex industry will be able to access assistance in the government's economic relief package. Pretty positive stuff. Health and Labor Minister Kazunobu Kato said in a news conference on Tuesday that it's a reversal of the government's original plan, which excluded restaurants and bars in the adult entertainment industry. Government will provide a subsidy of $8,335 530 yen, $76 per day to businesses that allow employees to take leave and take care of their children out of school. Government's original plan was criticized as occupational discrimination by government opposition members. And rice prices surge to 7-year highs as coronavirus sparks stockpiling. The price of rice, a staple food in Asia, hit its 7-year highs due to the coronavirus outbreak as importers rush to stockpile the grain while exporters curb shipments. According to the Thai Rice Exports Association, the price of 5% broken white rice, the industry benchmark, rose 12% from March 25th to April 1st. Rice prices are now the highest since late April 2013, according to Reuters data. The rise in prices is due to expectations of higher demand for Thai rice after fellow top exporters in India and Vietnam both face export disruptions of the strategic staple food due to the outbreak of the coronavirus disease, formerly known as COVID-19. Obviously it's still you know what I mean. Asia produces 90% of the world's rice supply and consumes the same amount. In India, rice traders have stopped signing new export contracts as labor shortages and logistical disruptions hamper the delivery of existing contracts. Reuters reported, citing industry officials. The Vietnamese government, meanwhile, has put in export curbs. Even before the March spike, rice prices had started climbing in late 2019 due to severe drought in Thailand and strong demand from Asian and African importers. Thailand is the world's second largest exporters after India and ahead of Vietnam. The gain in prices comes despite expectations of robust production. This and crop year and carryover stocks of rice and wheat being at an all-time high, said Samarindu Mohanty, Asian Regional Director at the Peru-based International Potato Center, a nonprofit group of researching food security. The Thai rice I got lost. The Thai Rice Exporters Association assured in a weekly report that rice stocks are ample, but acknowledged difficulties in procuring labor amidst the virus outbreak as Cambodian laborers head home during the lockdown. That could mean seasonal farming activities difficult and hit future harvests. Unlike other sectors, agricultural is heavily affected by the timing of the lockdown rather than the duration because the strict planting and harvesting calendar. If planting season is missed, there will be no crop for the season or for the entire year. Worrisome. North America, Europe, and China are now forcing labor shortages and supply line disruptions for spring planting. If they miss the planting window, they're done for an entire year. In other parts of the world, like India and other South Asian countries, it's now harvest time for winter crops such as wheat, potato, cotton, and some fruits and vegetables. Farmers need migrant workers to operate machinery and perform other manual labor like loading and unloading the produce. We should have quite a bit left of this story that I do want to finish, but we have to take a break. So I think we're going to take that break and come back to the rest of the story when we return. because I think it's kind of important to talk about, some of the repercussions of this. So we're going to talk about that when we return from the break. So don't go anywhere to hear the rest of that story.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hey, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about rice possible shortages in Asia, which produces and consumes 90% of the world's rice products. That's why it's in weird news. It's a bit shocking, isn't it? Anyway, so let's go back to that. So why the shortages are happening, obviously, is because laborers are being forced to stay home for the isolation, but they will also be missing planting season. So they can't harvest the things that grew in the winter now, but they also can't plant for things that will grow in the fall. So there's going to be like a double whammy of shortages. So although import buying some commodities has accelerated in recent weeks, logistical challenges are being reported as movement constraints and quarantine measures become widespread. The International Grain Council said in a recent report. It also acknowledged a sharp upturn in near-term demand, especially for rice and wheat-based products. It's not just rice. Prices of wheat, a staple grain used to make pasta and bread, have also risen. Benchmark wheat futures on the Chicago Board of Trade were hit by the coronavirus outbreak earlier this year, but have seen gains since mid-March. The price of what wheat futures also rose by 15% in the second half of March due to panic buying by the consumers of and crop concerns arising from lockdowns in North America and in Europe. Rice and wheat prices will remain supported in the coming weeks, said Fitch Solutions in a note. Supply is currently tightening due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on demand and trade, as well as the aftermath of bad weather in key producers. Severe drought in Southeast Asia and Australia, obviously due to the fires. Although prices of wheat and rice are currently low in absolute terms as compared to the historical averages, they're still significantly higher on year, if noted. This implies that food price inflation will accelerate further in 2020, continuing from 2019 when the African swine fever outbroke, which led to a prolonged spike in meat prices. Food industry associations and organizations are urging countries to keep trade open. One cannot blame countries for ensuring their domestic food security during this time, but countries need to be extra careful in taking unnecessary policy measures that could create panic in the market. Countries should also be aware that enough grains exist in warehouses to feed the world for more than 4 months. These grains are no use if the countries resort to trade restrictions. In other news, it's been less than 2 weeks since New Zealand imposed a coronavirus lockdown so strict that swimming at the beach and hunting in the bushland were banned. So, Those older people are safe. They're not essential activities. Plus, we've been told not to do anything that could divert resources from the emergency services. People have been walking, biking, strictly in their neighborhoods, lining up 6 feet apart when waiting to go in and out of grocery stores, and joining the swaths of the world in discovering the vagaries of homeschooling. How are you guys doing with that? You listening to this while, teaching math? That wasn't very good. I'm sorry, I've lost my edge. The number of new cases has fallen for 2 consecutive days, despite a huge increase in testing, with 54 confirmed or probable cases reported Tuesday. That means the number of people who have recovered, 65, exceeds the number of daily infections. The signs are promising, says Ashley Bloomfield, the Director of General Health, on Tuesday. The speedy results have led to calls to ease lockdown conditions even a little for the 4-day Easter holiday, especially as summer lingers on. In New Zealand, our summer is not yet started. We're barely in spring. But Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is adamant that New Zealand will complete 4 weeks of lockdown, 2 full 14-day incubation cycles before letting up. She has, however, given the Easter Bunny special dispensation to work this weekend. Sucks, eh? Easter Bunny still gotta work. We're all in lockdown. Easter Bunny still gotta, not fair. Maybe the Easter Bunny wants to be with their family. How has New Zealand, a country that I still come home after 20 years abroad, controlled its outbreak so quickly, she says, with the coronavirus tearing through Italy and spreading across the United States, this heavily tourism-reliant country gets about 4 million international visitors a year, almost as many as its total population. It shut its borders to foreigners on the 19th of March. 2 days later, Miss Ardern delivered a television address from her office. The first time since 1982, an Oval Office-style speech that's been given, announcing coronavirus response plan, alerting 4 stages, with a full lockdown being level 4. A group of influential leaders on the phone with her the following day urged to moving to level 4. We were hugely worried about what was happening in Italy and Spain. If we didn't shut down quickly enough, the pain was going to go on for a very long time, said New Zealand's largest retailer, founder of Warehouse, Stephen Tyndall. It's inevitable that we'll have to shut down anyway, so I'd rather be sharp and short. On the 23rd of March, Ms. Ardern delivered another statement that gave the country 48 hours to prepare for a level 4 lockdown. We currently have 102 cases, but so did Italy once. From Wednesday night, everyone had to stay in the home for 4 weeks unless they worked in an essential job. A few hours before midnight, the phone sounded a siren as it delivered a text alert. Act as if you have COVID-19, and this will save lives. Let's do our bit to unite against COVID. That is fascinating. From the earliest stages, Mrs. Ardern and her team have spoken a simple language: stay home, don't have contact, be kind, we're all in this together. This is also an exceptionally large story. Sorry, I keep starting stuff and then pausing, but we do need to take another break. So we're going to talk more about why New Zealand is doing so well, because it's important to hear, why is one country doing so well. So we're going to talk about what New Zealand is doing right, and maybe think about how we can implement that ourselves when we return from the break. So don't go anywhere. We're going to finish off that story when we return. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. All right, so before the break, we were talking about New Zealand and how New Zealand's been really kind of keeping it under wraps. Under wraps, that's not right. What do I mean? Keeping a lid on it? Yeah. And basically they've been behaving for weeks now and will continue to for more weeks. For 2 more weeks maybe, I think. Is that how long they're... Yeah. And they're going to be doing that. They're behaving like everyone has COVID. And that's what they're hoping to flatten the curve with. And they've actually been doing really well if you look at their numbers, compared to ours. It's pretty incredible. So what are they doing right? All right. So we're talking about Miss Ardern's speeches and what she's doing. She's usually done this from the podium of news conferences where she's discussed everything from the price of cauliflowers to wage subsidies. She's also regularly given updates and answers questions on Facebook, including one done with sitting at home, possibly in her bed in a sweatshirt. There have been critics and rebels. The police have been ordering surfers out of the waves. The health minister was caught, possibly chastised by Miss Ardern, who said that she would have fired him if it weren't disruptive to the crisis response. For mountain biking and taking his family to the beach. That's an oopsie, if I ever did hear one. There's been a sense of collective purpose. The police phone line for non-emergencies has been overwhelmed with people calling to Dobbin. Others think they are breaching the rules. The response has been notably apolitical. The center-right National Party has clearly made a decision to not criticize the government's response, and in fact to help it. The efforts appear to be paying off. After peaking at 89 on April 2nd, the daily number of new cases ticked down to 67 on Monday and 54 on Tuesday. The vast majority of cases can be linked to international travel, making contact tracing relatively easy, and many are consolidated into identifiable clusters. Because there is little evidence of community transmission, New Zealand does not have huge numbers of people overwhelming hospitals. Only one person, an elderly woman with existing health problems, has died. The nascent slowdown reflected a triumph of science and leadership, says Michael Baker, professional of public health at the University of Otago and one of the country's top epidemiologists. Jacinda approached the decisivity and unequivocally and faced the threat, said Mr. Baker, who's been advocating for elimination approach since the World Health Organization report on China came out in February. Other countries have a gradual ramp up, but our approach is exactly the opposite, he said. While other Western countries have tried to slow the disease and flatten the curve, New Zealand has tried to stamp it out entirely. Some American doctors have urged that the Trump administration pursue the elimination approach. Over each country. Sorry, I am confusing my words very much. This helps the country feel like a village where everyone knows everyone and messages can travel quickly. New Zealand's next challenge, once the virus is eliminated, is how to keep it that way. The country won't be able to allow people free entry into New Zealand until the virus has stopped circulating globally, or a vaccine has been developed, said Mr. Baker. But with strict border control, restrictions could gradually relax and life inside New Zealand could return to almost normal. Mrs. Arden said that the government is considering a mandatory quarantine for New Zealanders returning to the country post-lockdown. I really want a watertight system at our border. I think we can do better on that. Well, it's worked. Lockdown, baby. If everybody actually just stayed in their homes, I don't think we would be having a problem. All right, so because I don't want to start another long story before the break, here's one here. Police cadets were busted throwing a late-night party on a horrendous breach of coronavirus social distancing measures. Australian. Yeah, that's right. So from the incredible New Zealand to the rebellious Australia, the Australian Federal Police recruits threw a party at their residential campus in a clear breach of coronavirus social distancing restrictions. The cadets held the party at the Australian Federal Police College at the Kinberry suburb of Barton on Friday night. A spokesperson confirmed that the trainees at the college hosted the event. The AFP were aware of the internal recruit gathering at the college, she told the Daily Mail Australia. ACT police can confirm it attended a gathering and spoke with those involved. The matter has been handed to the AFP to investigate further and take any action deemed necessary. She said cadets are isolated as much as possible to comply with social distancing restrictions, which their senior colleagues are enforcing across the nation. The incident is being investigated. The AFP spokesperson told the ABC it expects recruits to obey the law. Any breaches of the code of conduct will be dealt with in line with AFP professional standards framework. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced a nationwide ban on gatherings of more than 2 people to curb the spread of COVID-19. Australians are expected to maintain a distance of 1.5 meters away from others and are also expected to maintain this distance as long as possible as the infections soar. So that's an example of what to do from New Zealand, and then all the way to what not to do from their neighbors. I wonder if there are 2 other neighboring countries where one is doing much better than the other. Just pondering. Okie doke. We are going to take a break on that note. But when we come back, we're going to talk about a similar story of irony. This time in Illinois. I'm going to talk about that ironic COVID oopsie when we return from the break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right. Before the break, we were talking about what New Zealand is doing right, and why their numbers are so low, and what Australia is doing wrong, and why their police ended up breaking the social distancing rules to throw a party. That's fun. Well, not the police candidates. So not fully trained police yet. I think it's probably safe to say that a lot of them are not going to pass the test. And now, a mayor ordered police to crack down on social gatherings, and they found his wife at a bar. A mayor in Illinois pleaded with residents last week to follow the state's stay-at-home order after officers reported that people were continuing to defy the rules. The mayor said that he directed the city's police department to use its discretion in issuing citations and arrests. These are very serious times, and I'm begging you to please stay home, says Brant Walker, a mayor of Alton, Illinois. He said this in a briefing on Friday. Yeah. Less than 48 hours later, the police broke up a gathering at Hiram's Tavern, located in downtown Alton. Among them in attendance was Walker's wife. Walker announced in a statement on Monday that the police had investigated and stopped a social gathering in violation of Illinois' statewide order around 1 a.m. on Sunday. The police also informed him that his wife was there. I instructed the police chief to treat her as he would any other citizen violating a stay-at-home order, and to ensure that she received no special treatment. Walker's statement read, "Whoa, harsh or totally fair?" Illinois' stay-at-home order prohibits all public and private gatherings of any number of people outside a single household or living unit. The Alton Police Department said in a press release, that it had received several complaints and that the tavern was continuing to operate on weekends. Officers found no unauthorized activity until Sunday, when several individuals were being located inside Hiram's Tavern in an area outside public view, clearly disregarding the executive order and public pleas for compliance, according to the release. Alton police confirmed to CNN that officers issued a criminal complaint for reckless conduct, a Class A misdemeanor charge punishable by up to 364 days in jail and or a fine of $2,500 to everyone who had gathered at the bar. The mayor said in a statement that he was embarrassed by his wife's actions. "My wife is an adult capable of making her own decisions. And in this instance, she exhibited a stunning lack of judgment," Walker said. She now faces the same consequence for her ill-advised decision as any other individual who chose to violate the stay-at-home order during this incident. "I'm embarrassed by the incident. I apologize for the citizens of Alton for any embarrassment this incident caused our city. CNN reached out to Walker's office for further comment. Not received anything yet. I don't understand why people still want to go out. Like, do you not understand what this is? What's going on? Do you not care about other people? It's not about you. This isn't, all these stay-at-home things are not to protect you. They're to protect vulnerable people. Stop being so dang selfish. Anyway. I just don't get it. Maybe this is me being naive and assuming that, I don't know, people care about other human lives other than their own. I don't know. For those of you using Zoom, which I assume is most of you, stolen Zoom passwords and meeting IDs are already being shared on the dark web, so be careful. Zoom confronted numerous security issues amid a spike of the service during the pandemic. Yet another problem for the video conferencing platform as it entered the stage thanks to the dark web. Cybersecurity from Sixgill recently discovered a collection of Zoom accounts that had been compromised. The accounts were shared by a user on the popular dark web forum. Information including accounts connected, email address, password, meeting ID, host key, and host name. The stolen credentials were even labeled by a type of Zoom account, meaning the stolen information included users paying for a higher tier service. In comments on the post, several actors thanked him for the post, and one revealed intentions to troll the meetings. Why is that fun? You don't know them. Like, what's wrong with you people? The accounts could certainly be used to troll the owner or join I guess you want to sit in on a business meeting of a business you don't care about. It's weird. Security experts have noted how the service can be used by employers to effectively spy on their employees at home. That's weird. The application was discovered by unnecessarily providing user data to Facebook, as well as mining LinkedIn to unmask anonymous users without their knowledge. A bug was uncovered that allowed hackers to steal from your Windows password using Zoom. Security issues became so prevalent in this new colloquialization. Zoom bombing was coined to specifically define the act of finding an ID and crashing a Zoom teleconference. The accounts discovered could all be targeted by this act specifically. Things became so bad last week that Zoom CEO Eric Yoon apologized for the issues and announced that the company was going to focus on fixing the security and privacy bugs over the next 90 days. One thing Zoom should work on in the next coming months is figuring out how a malicious actor got their hands on the account credentials belonging to 352 of its users. It's a lot. It's a lot of users. Let's just leave it there. Just be careful with your Zoom accounts, I suppose. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to do a hard 180. And we're going to talk about aliens. So, just to cleanse our palates of all of this coronavirus weirdness, I guess. Just thought I'd end on that kind of note. Sound good? Sound fair? Hope so. Because, either way I'm going to do it. And you can't do anything. Because you're not here with me recording, are you? Somebody visit me. I'm so lonely. Okay, come back after the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about Zoom bombing. As you do when you hack a person's Zoom meeting. I just don't understand how that would be appealing. Who cares? Anyway, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. The documentary series, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, with Dr. Stephen Greer, one of the world's leading UFO experts, that sounds like an oxymoron, was just released. Most people think intelligent alien life exists. To be clear, it sounds like an oxymoron because they're unidentified flying objects. How can you be an expert in something that's unidentified? I'm not saying that. Anyway. Half of Americans think that extraterrestrial life exists. We all saw the Steven Spielberg movie. We know it does. But now people can get in on the action. By crowdsourcing contact with ETs, we might bypass governments, says this leading UFO expert. I mean, come on. Don't call him that. A close encounter of the fifth kind, broadly defined as human-initiated extraterrestrial contact, defined by Stephen Greer, is actually a prototype hybrid project, which is scientific research and diplomatic interspecies relations components. In this UFO event, it is humans who are initiated peaceful bilateral contact with ETs through conscious, voluntary, and proactive cooperative communication. I mean, ETs are probably a lot smarter than us, let's be honest. Should we be asking them for help with this whole coronavirus thing? I mean, shouldn't we? Or is that kind of like asking your parents for money? A bit sad. Given how much our concept of the universe has changed in the last few hundred years, the universe as we know it may not be as we think we know it. We have no idea what dark matter and dark energy are. We don't know why the speed of light is the particular speed it is. And there's so much we don't know. Uncertainty about space and even time. Plus the fact that there could be intelligent alien life a million or more years ahead of our own development makes us take notice when Dr. Stephen Greer says that he's discovered a protocol to contact aliens. True Strange News has spoken to people who have real experiences at alien contact CE5 events. So something is going on, and Dr. Greer believes that if enough people participate, there could be a shift to a better world. 1% of the population meditating and making peaceful contact can cause a phase transition, a shift that transforms the entire planet and moves humanity to one peaceful future. That is interstellar. The trailer on YouTube for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind has over 1.2 million views, and it's now available on Amazon Prime for purchase. And there is a CE5 app at the Apple Store that allows people to contact and try the contact procedure. There's a stream on March 28th with Dr. Greer on YouTube. He's also a former emergency department doctor, and today he shares some useful information about the ongoing pandemic. He says, get exercise, sunlight, and zinc with an orange because there are cofactors we need, which are not vitamin C alone. There you go. Getting back to aliens, though. Could unlimited energy sources and highly advanced technical solutions to many of our problems exist, and might they be given as gifts to humanity? It could only elevate our thinking. Are we bumbling children compared to the older and more advanced civilizations? Could we be reaching a point where we could handle the magic without harming ourselves? To make contact with ETs, which could be all around us, right under our noses, invisible with technology, we need only to overcome certain fears. Meditation is known to be a powerful healing experience for many. If you're willing to try to possibly have an experience with something beyond our world, start by trying this guided meditation with Dr. Greer. I've not tried this, but maybe in the future. Here comes a first experience with this kind of situation. 2 nights ago, I had a dream. I had what might have been a visitation by a being or just a dream, but it seemed very real at the time. Was it? It honestly scared the crap out of us, but we were sensed that we were being intended no harm. The thought occurred that a figure in a black Tron-like suit, perhaps an interdimensional being, that could not be seen, was coming back from the future. Are aliens? Time traveling back to our earlier days? We can enjoy all the science fiction, but what if it's more? In our view, sufficiently advanced rates of ETs could appear in any form. Traditional short little gray aliens, lights in the sky, those beings, a Tron-suited figure, a cow, a helicopter, even a tin can. Everything could be connected. Could it be that this is exactly the time that we need a bit of help from aliens? True strange news like this, think that a civilian a million years ahead of us could easily and safely disable all these COVID viruses on Earth. All the SARS-CoV-2 viruses on Earth with an antivirus ray, if we asked them the right way. What would they want in return from a puny, primitive human? We can't even imagine. So why ask? So there's a little bit of a story for you. Think about that. Meditate. Talk to aliens if you feel like it. Cool. Should we end the show there? Is that a good time to end it? How you guys feeling? You feeling good? Don't know why I'm asking you. You can't respond. Anyway. We're going to come to the end of the show. So that's it. Thank you for listening to the Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write us a nice review. Rate the episode. Really helps us. Give us them upvotes. It's 5 stars. Brings us to the tippity top. If you didn't like the episode, no one likes a snitch. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a good meditation tonight. Continue to wash your hands and social distance. You can occupy yourself by meditating and possibly talking to more elevated beings. Interesting. Just something to think about. Okay. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.